Now we're live without Joe shenanigans. Hi, welcome to the Roundabout cast,
Hello.
Yay!
episode 23, I think.
Classic edition.
Classic edition.
I'm your
What, we're all
host,
wearing suits that you can't
Classic
see.
Willer.
I am Chimera Bradley, the product of the Chimera Ant Queen eating Bradley and pooping me out.
What animal are you mixed with?
I'm Chimera Ant Bradley. I'm just Bradley form.
Okay, well, that's kind of lame, but alright.
I'm Space Western Vintage Joe.
Very good. These
Yes.
are all, well, they're all mostly applicable. Actually, speaking of that, our first topic, well, I'll mention that special guest Tyler couldn't make it, and if he made it one more episode, I was going to grant him the title of regular guest Tyler
Oh no.
for breaking his 3-episode streak, but he tied it, so I guess we'll see what happens in the future.
So he goes back to special guest Tyler now, and once he beats it, he has to get to 4 basically.
Once he gets to 4, he can become regular guest Tyler.
Correct.
But Joe, why don't you tell us about the Outer Worlds, which I'm actually really interested to hear about this one.
Yes. So I'm gonna put up a disclaimer very quickly that I have not beaten the Outer Worlds yet. I've put in like several hours into it, so like I'll probably come back again when I finish it. But I just want to give this is like kind of my first impressions and how I feel right now coming to somebody that has played Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4 and all that kind of jazz. So we're gonna start off with like kind of discussing why this game is important to a lot of Fallout fans, especially Fallout New Vegas fans.
Fallout boys, you could say.
Yeah.
Eh.
So a long time ago, in the ages of I probably wasn't old enough to speak sentences or like play video games properly. Fallout 1 and 2 came out and they were made by Black Isle Studios. They were isometric games, they were RPGs, they were set in the Fallout universe. Like they were pretty much like cult classic hits for RPG players. I don't know the whole history of it. I believe Bethesda ends up buying Black Island Games or gets a contract with them basically, and Bethesda makes Fallout 3, the sequel to Fallout 2.
Which, Fallout, much like the Persona series, starts at 3.
Yes. and Fallout 3 is completely different. It's a first-person game that's a hybrid of first-person shooter, open world, RPG systems, and the biggest one being VATS, the various like stats that you can increase and decrease, and the perk system that allows you to basically get like not necessarily superpowers, but like abilities that can be very beneficial to you.
VATS is a very accurate targeting system.
Yes, VATS is
Clever.
essentially the way that allows you to transition from a
Real time.
real time first person to almost turn based, but not really. I'll probably get into that later when I talk about what Outer Worlds does. So, anyways, Fallout 3 comes out, and then the people at Black Island are like, "Oh, we want to make our own Fallout game," and they made Fallout New Vegas. And when they made the game, the big thing that people took away from it, from like the mainstay crowd, was that it was very buggy and very glitchy when it came out. It wasn't really that stable. They introduced some patches that made it work and made it better. But the people who had played the game and had played the fixed version, they immediately learned that Fallout New Vegas is a lot more intricate compared to Fallout 3 when it came to its storylines and the way that things were woven into each other. And so it made a point in Fallout New Vegas where you could cut yourself off from completing certain quest lines depending on which side you ended up joining. In Fallout 3, this had it too, but not as much as New Vegas did. Like there were multiple times where like you would be going down a quest line and you suddenly, because of what faction quest line you were going into, you would realize you were entering at an intersection point of another quest line for another faction, but on the other side. If you went back and played the other way, you could see where those things matched up, and you could see how you could intervene at those other section points. Like it was very much, there was a lot of interwoven storytelling throughout this entirety of the game. So Fallout 4 comes out, and they basically dumb it down a lot when it comes to the role-playing settings, and just kind of focus on crafting and shooting and that's kind of basically it comparatively.
That
Um,
game, from what I understand, was not very well liked.
it like the game is fun, I think, but it just like whenever I played the game, I was just like, man, this is fun to play. Like on a terms of like, oh, I get my gun, it does damage. That's as fun. I can like really kind of min max what I want to do, but sorry, but from perspective of like playing a role playing game, it was a failure. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, so people were very upset with that. People at Black Island even ended up leaving that studio and go and join Obsidian Entertainment, which makes games like Pillars of Eternity, Tyrant. I'm forgetting another big game of theirs, but like they make a lot of like isometric RPG games like Fallout. So this was their answer base. This is their spiritual successor to Fallout New Vegas. And like from what I've like from playing the game is basically what Fallout should have evolved into, essentially. Like it's like I literally like look at Fallout 4 and I look at the Outer Worlds and it looks like I'm looking at a split timeline of what could have been. It's
Yeah,
really weird.
it's kind of like Outer Worlds, even though like obviously I don't know nearly as much about it as you would,
Yeah.
but like I remember whenever that like first trailer came out, there was kind of instantly a certain level of hype for it.
Yes.
And when you say like spiritual successor to Fallout New Vegas, I can just imagine like every Fallout fan flipping out at those words.
Yeah. And the thing is like I wasn't like overly hyped about the game. Like I was like, "Oh, that looks good." I like based on what I've seen so far in like the interviews, it seems like they kind of know what they're doing and they know what and like from Fallout New Vegas, they know what their strong points were and they're just transitioning into it. And I kind of got the game because I was like, why not? One night, I think I was slightly intoxicated, so I just bought it.
Classic
and
Joe.
yeah, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna play it. And I played it, and I was like, man, this is like it feels great. Like it feels like I'm playing actually Fallout again, comparatively to Fallout 4. Like
It's made on Unreal Engine, so it must be nice to play like a Fallout style game in an engine that isn't fuck busted.
yes, that's another thing too. Like this game has no arrogance in it, basically, which is funny compared to like the trailer that they had like from the creators of Fallout after like Bethesda's Fallout 76 like disaster
Yeah.
kind of thing. But like when you play this game, it definitely feels like heart and soul was put into this game of like we know what to take out, we know these things that like that are part of Fallout or part of Fallout that kind of made it charming unique, but we're going to cut them out because it's going to make the game better overall, and make it more stable and more fun. And it just whenever like it's one of those games where like I won't play it for a while and then I'll turn it on and I'll play it and I'll play it for hours. I'm like, this game is so much fun. Like I just love being a part of it. I love doing it. I love the atmosphere part of it about it, and it feels great. That's my general impressions. I'm just gonna dive into more about what the game actually is about. So the game is set in an alternate timeline where um where the president before Franklin Delano Roosevelt didn't die and got a second term basically or continued his term. He allowed all of these different companies that were huge to get even bigger, which on one hand sped up like the scientific process, but made everything just a capitalistic dystopia
Yeah.
essentially.
I'm super excited about that because I heard about this game's setting and like how
Mhm.
its tone, and I really want to get your take on that.
So the best description I ever got for this game was this game is Fallout with Firefly put into it with a sprinkling of Bioshock, which is
Mm.
just great.
So it's a
And-
Joe game, huh?
yes. And so like it has this very space western feel. The guns do have a very reminiscent of the steampunky looking western type guns. Everyone's got like bowler hats on and has like crazy ass mustaches. And it's kind of weird too because a lot of the people also have like pixie cut hair and dyed hair. So it's you get this old setting, but it has a good enough like modern like touch and flavor to it that you can relatively think like, oh, this is the future. It's just like a
Regressed.
different form of it. It feels like a future you would see in a Disney movie almost, which makes it even better because it's kind of like this. Let's take an old timey looking, an old version, like a past like setting, but make it more futuristic, and it kind of gives this cool, like familiar but also different setting. Um, but the use, but like so you are essentially the survivor of a colony ship that was being sent out to this system called the Halcyon system, and it basically its warp drive failed or whatever, and it's been just drifting in space for 70 plus years. Um, Eventually, this guy finds you, and it's like, this is terrible. Companies should not be allowed to just leave people to die in space. You're gonna help me do it. And he basically unfreezes you and like sends you on this quest to like get enough stuff to fix the ship and get everyone on board alive again and to the colonies itself. To kind of just like stick it to the man, basically. Um, so you're the guy literally shoves you into a drop pod and is like, here's what you have to do, and pulls the lever, and you're just on your first planet, and you're just like, well, I guess I'll go do this now. It kind of like shoves it down the throat of like what your motivation is, and like that's the one kind of negative I have so far is that like there's not really a big motivator for you to like do the main quest. But I love doing the main quest, but like it's not like in Fallout 3 where your dad escapes and you're on the run and you're just like, the only connection I have to this world is my dad and I have to go find him kind of thing. Like it's your only path of survival.
I was gonna say Fallout 3 and 4 have pretty weak motivation, so if it's below that,
it's weird because you ended up like, I ended up being like, yeah, I'll just do it, and I just kind of went and do it. But it's kind of hard for me to justify like doing that out of the goodness of my heart after just waking up from 70 years of sleep. Because imagine what you being asleep for 70 years, and someone goes like, hey, it's been 70 years, you're in the future, I need you to save everyone. I think that's a little bit much.
Yeah, like let me read the news first.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the basic premise, is that you're trying to get this shit back online, and you make a lot of moral decisions along the way. So right off the bat, when you're creating your character, like the skill system in this game, I was already in love with, because they hit a perfect medium of not having it be like super number heavy, like, but also giving you those numbers. So basically what happens at the beginning is you have a set of stats, like you have strength, dexterity, charisma, leadership, and defense. And rather than associate that number, they allow you to make it average, above average, or you can take away stats, so you can make like your strength below average, but that gives you another stat point essentially to make something else above average or even superior.
I like that.
So it's like, which number one is like, great. This is what role playing is about. It's about understanding what your character is going to be and what he's going to specialize in. Like that's the number one thing about role playing games. It's the role in role playing games.
Right.
So then after you do that, you get introduced to, it shows you all the skills for each different stat. So like your dexterity has one-handed guns, long-range guns, heavy guns, and your strength has like one-hand weapons and two-hand weapons, like, you know, generic stuff. So what makes it really cool is whenever you level up, you just level up, you basically select the stat category and you level that up, and levels all the skills in that stat until that skill hits 50, in which you only individually level up that skill. So like if I'm going a gun build, I'll level up dexterity, but as soon as like my one-handed gun gets leveled up to 50, I have to only invest in one-handed guns if I want to make them better, or I invest in the dexterity stat again, but it only levels up my long-range gun and my heavy guns. So it allows you to have both a very broad sense of what you can be doing, but also allows you, it allows you to not to kind of be a jack of all trades kind of dude, but it also allows you to be very narrowly focused on what you can do.
Yeah,
so like,
I heard that later on you get to narrow down those stats even more. But like it's cool that it front loads you with options and letting you be broad. And then
Yeah.
later in the game, when you find out what you really like, you get to specify more.
Yeah, it's a great way of like creating this funnel system for your role playing game because it allows you to like try out everything, and as you play the game more, you get to invest in more specific things, and allows you to create your character as a single unique entity essentially,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome. It's great. The other thing they have is perks, which is carried over from Fallout, and basically just every other level you get a perk, and it's like increased carrying capacity, increased health, increased damage for your companions, all that kind of like stuff, which is neat. But what makes it so cool is that as you're playing the game, you can develop flaws for your character.
Oh, that's dope.
So, for example, like there was these things called primals, or like these big monkey things, and I would fight them, and I would like go to low health all the time. I would just be sucking on like medicine packs, and I'd be like, Jesus Christ, these things are hard. And after like doing that for a while, the game was like, would you like to pick up a flaw for this species? If you do, you get a free perk point, but you take some negative penalties whenever you fight these things because I have like primal phobia. So, and I've seen ones where like people will get flaws from like jumping, like height phobia because they jump off of tall things and injure themselves all the time. So the guy,
Dark
it's
Souls
just
2 style.
yeah. So I'm like, that's a great way of like making a character even more unique. It's like, oh, I have a flaw against like robots. I do really bad against robots, but you know what? I got a perk that allowed me to carry 50 more pounds of stuff, so it was well worth it. And it feels great because it feels like your character's unique and it's your own thing, and like the character I make won't be the same as Willer and can just completely different in the way we build things, and it's awesome. I think I love all the companions I've met. I've met every single one of them now. I think they're all great. There are some companions where I ran into was like, I'm not gonna like this guy, and then I'm like, I love this guy, and that's basically all I ever want whenever I have people in my party. So the big thing, that they part of that spiritual successor from Fallout is they also have their own VATS called the Tactical Time Dilation System. So in VATS, what it was is basically time would stop. You would then be able to select like multiple points on an enemy, and you have a percentage of hitting that thing or not, and you shoot it, and it can damage that limb or body part or so forth. What tactical time dilation does is that it slows down time, and it allows you to aim at different body parts like freehand. It's not like you're like moving like section to section, but you get to like
kind slow mo.
Yeah. But what I like about this version of tactical time dilation much more than that is that when you shoot somebody in tactical time dilation at a certain body part, it incurs a status effect on them. If I go in tactical time dilation and shoot someone in the legs, it makes them move slower. How I had to fight those primals was I would have to go in tactical time dilation, shoot all of their legs so they would slow down, so it gave me enough time to shoot them and kill them essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me really actually strategize how I'm fighting these creatures or enemies, rather than in Fallout where every time I felt like I'm just going to aim for the chest or head because that's what I can see and that will give me the most damage.
I was going to say, like, I played Fallout 3 and maybe this is high level strats that I didn't understand, but I always felt like you should just aim for the head. Plus you had the highest hit chance on like the head and chest.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's how I felt too. And like it never felt worth it to aim for the legs or for the arms or anything other than for shits and giggles. But this is like, oh, I need to shoot this guy's arms because it's gonna more likely make it so he misses me when he swings at me with the bat.
It's Monster Hunter. You gotta break Barrioth's swings so that he falls over when he jumps.
Yeah. And it's just like that's what that should be. Like it should be I have to make a conscious decision to try and impede this person so it's easier for me to kill him or it stops him from killing me. So I've really enjoyed it a lot. And that was one of the things that I was kind of hesitant about because I liked that and being that selection and having it be different options and whatever. But this feels like whenever I shoot it, it feels like an actual choice.
That's good.
Yeah. So I'm going to go into like this. So I'm going to talk about like the choices and dialogues now. And this is going to require a spoiler, I think, for like the first part of the game. Because I just want to tell you all about it because I thought like this is a great opening like moral decision in this game. It really sets the tone of like this is what your moral dilemma or this is what your overarching like theme throughout this entire game is going to be. So, like just be prepared for that kind of deal. And so I just thought I'd just throw it out there right now. So when the first planet you land on is it's called Terra 2, and you land next to a city called Edgewater, which is an incorporated city that is literally there just to make sardine cans. Like that's its whole purpose. Is that people there make sardines, they put them into cans, and then they ship it out to the rest of the colony. That's their one thing that they do. Basically, they have a bunch of like they have a general store and a barber. That's more of there for the people there. It's not like a commodity that they sell. And you learn that your ship that you're going to use to get off the planet, its reactor is busted. I forget what the actual term is, but the part you need is broken. But Edgewater has one. So you go in there and you talk to the mayor, and the mayor's like, well, we only have one, and it powers the entirety of our city, so we can't give it to you. But there's a second group of people that are all the way out and like that were deserters from our city, and they have their own reactor. So you should take their reactor, and that will make them come back to us. And so you go out there, you have this whole moral decision dilemma of, and for a while, like I was going into this, like, oh, I'll go out there and I'll talk to them so I can get the other half of the quest, which is I go back to the other city, and I just take their reactor instead, and I give it to the other people. And I get there, and my companion was the one that changed my mind, which never happens to me in these games. And she goes like, I think you should. And like the whole time you're talking to this girl, you know that she like really doesn't like the corporate cities. She doesn't think it's good. She thinks what they're doing, like they're very immoral, like people. So I'm coming up to the part where I'm about to like unlock the location, or I'm about to basically go into the room where it's going to have the power like generator that I need to take out. And as I walk up there, she's like, I know we've talked a lot about this. I don't think you should shut off Edgewater's power. And I was just taken aback. I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, and she explained to me that if you turn off the power, I should back up a little bit. So the colony that you go to that has this other reactor, it's very much like a hippie colony that has homegrown its foods and has become very organic. And it's a very small community, and it's able to sustain itself, which is something that Edgewater basically can't do. It relies on the other corporate cities to do so. So they have basically been able to become independent. And so we're at this junction of like, which city's power should I shut off? She goes, you can't turn off Edgewater's power because if they go to the small community, all those people will die because that community can only survive because it's so small. And it's just like, well, shit, you're kind of right. That if...
But then if you take their power, they die anyways because they don't need the power anymore now that they're self-sufficient.
No, they need the power because it helps them grow their plants. But if you take the power from the other community, it forces them to join the bigger city, and the bigger city can support them.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it very much was like a logical, like, if you shut off the power to the small community, they will be able to live with the bigger community, even if they don't like it. But if you shut off the big community, sure, that sticks it to the man, but you're probably going to kill a lot of people that live in that city because that small community can only survive and sustain itself because it's so small. It's just a small, like, farming village, basically. So imagine like a small farming village gets a huge influx of people that they suddenly have to feed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not going to work. And I was just like, wow, you're right.
Good point, partner.
Yeah. And I ended up like switching off the community's power and being like, you've got to go back home. Like, that's how you're going to live. And I was just like, that was a good choice. Like, at least in my opinion, of really making you think about like what's truly right. Like, destroying something that's morally wrong, or letting people live, or having people do something they don't like but allows them to live. You know, it's not necessarily like the wrong, like one doesn't feel like the right answer to me. You know,
mm-hmm.
like you feel guilty about whichever way you do it, which I really appreciate. And I've done a few more that have been like that, and I'm just like everything they've done so far. The writing has been great. I've just really enjoyed it in general. So, how many hours do I have on this? Oh no. Oh no, I don't want to do that. Oh shit.
Joe, put your porn away, please.
No, I was trying to see how many hours I have on this, but I don't think the Epic Library, the Epic Store tells me.
Is this only in the Epic Store?
For computers, it is only in the Epic Store. You can get it for PlayStation.
PlayStation it is. Yeah, I'll probably pick this. I don't even like Fallout that much, but
yeah,
just from the tone and how everything in this game is like depressing and a bummer, and it's like the end point of consumerism. I'm like, yeah, I'm down for that at a sale.
Yeah, and like the game is also funny. Like the intro to the game, I thought was pretty funny, and there's a lot of juxtaposition jokes and all this. It's well written, and it's a great time for me, I think. And I just every time I talk to somebody or interact with somebody or read something, it's just fun. Like it's not a drag to do anything in this game. It feels like
Good stuff.
yeah. I don't
think
know how I
that's
feel about the end. I might just be like, this game was shit. I hate the ending. But I've heard like tons of other reviewers saying like, I finished the game, I immediately want to go back and play it again. So yeah,
Game of the year. You heard it here first.
I don't know. That'll come next month.
Worst, yeah. Worst part of this game is that it sounds too close to the Outer Wilds, and I fucking always get confused.
Yeah.
That's not cool. Not cool,
Yeah.
guys. All right.
Not cool. But yeah, the game's great. If you liked any of the Fallout games, just pick up Outer Worlds. It's like a no-brainer. You're going to like it, I think, regardless.